lots were 50 feet wide with an alley in the back. They have to go up. So our specialty was we turned one-story houses into two-story houses, or we turned garages into living spaces. And that's what we were doing. It was great. I was learning things and no thought of doing anything else ever. Well, one day I'm raking out sand, getting ready for a concrete pour, and I heard, not out here, but in here, go to school. I want you to be a classroom teacher. Well, I just blew that off. There's no way in the world I'm doing that. That doesn't even make any sense. That's just, you know, sometimes you hear words and you're not sure if it's God or not, but you're pretty sure it's not because it's totally crazy. Next day, we're actually pouring the concrete. I'm smoothing it out. I want you to go to school and become a classroom teacher. Now, this didn't make any sense to me at all. And I was not for this. I had my foot firmly on the brake pedal. I had a young child. I had a good job working with someone I really liked and who was good to me. He was actually taking the time to teach me a trade. Do you know who Tommy Silva is on this old house? Yeah, this guy was Tommy Silva. He knew everything and he taught me everything. I mean, he was fantastic to me. And not only that, I was a young believer, he was a mature believer, and he really spoke into my life as well. I was making fairly good money. I liked working with my hands. Oh, there's something about having an idea, drawing it and building it and seeing it done. That was me. On top of that, I didn't think school learning would be possible for me. Definitely was not an academic. In fact, I spent 3 years proving to my parents that college wasn't for me. And I had a very profound learning disability. I didn't know what the name of it was till years later, but all through my elementary years and high school years and before Christ college years, I had a learning disability. And so I didn't think it would be possible for me. And besides that, let's be honest. Sometimes we're not sure if it's God that's leading us or it's just in our head. I mean, maybe you are really, really, really good at discerning God's voice. I'm not all the time. Sometimes it's clear as a bell, there's no doubt. And of course, when it's repeated 2 days in a row, you got to pay attention, right? We'd like to be sure. Kind of like Gideon. You know, he wanted to be sure, right? Gideon's story is in Judges chapters 6 through 8. I'm sure we're familiar with it, but I just want to point out a couple of things about his story. First of all, the setting of Gideon is 2 centuries after Joshua, approximately 2 centuries before David, and we know that Israel's history of being faithful is a roller coaster. They'll be good for a while, and then old Baal will wear out thou. And they're in a Baal worship time right now during Gideon, and they're down. There's 2 neighboring countries, the Amalekites and the Midianites, and these guys are nasty. They wait until it's harvest time. All the crops are up, they're ready to harvest, everything's ready to go, and then they come in. They come swooping in like locusts. They take all of Israel's harvest. Israel would actually have to go out at night and try to get some grain, and they would go up in the caves and preserve what they could. Well, they started crying, "Oh God, help us, we're in trouble." And it's okay, God responds to the cries of his people, even when they're not so faithful. And so he listens to the cries, and he goes and he sends an angel. The angel of the Lord comes to Gideon in chapter 6 and verse 12. This angel of the Lord comes to Gideon and he says, "The Lord is with you, O valiant warrior." 8 words. The Lord is with you, O valiant warrior. The angel does two things in these 8 words. First, he declares the truth about God. And second, he declares the truth about Gideon's identity. Now, Gideon has 2 objections. You're with us. What do you mean you're with us? What do you mean God's with us? Look at us. We're hiding in caves that we can't even eat. Our animals are getting taken away. What do you mean you're with us? And a valiant warrior? Me? No, I'm the least in my father's house, and my father's house is least in the tribe of Manasseh, and that's the least tribe in Israel. What are you talking about, valiant warrior? It's me. I love the angel's response. I actually got to read it because I don't have it memorized. It's in Judges 6 and 16. If I stand far enough away, I can see it. But the angel of the Lord said to him, surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat Midian as if you were one man, as if he was one man. I see 2 important takeaways from the way the angel responded to Gideon. One, if you're a believer, he's with you. Romans 8:31. He's for us, who can be against us? If you belong to the Lord, he is with you. And second, God sees your true identity. And it might not be the same identity you have for yourself. He knows what he has deposited in you. He knows what you can become and what you can do in him. Well, Gideon's exhausted his objections, so now he moves into the I want to be sure phase. So the first thing he says is, hey, if you're really the angel of the Lord, just wait here a second. I'm going to run and go get an animal. We'll sacrifice it. I'll see if you're really God or not. And he goes and gets an animal. He puts it on the rock. The angel of the Lord takes a fire stick and vaporizes it. And Gideon goes, oh, yeah. So the first thing the Lord gives him to do is really a rather small task. He says, I want you to go and destroy the Asherah and tear down the altar to Baal that's in your father's house. Now, the Asherah was a giant totem pole. It was the goddess of fertility, and Baal was the god of war, storms, and the male god of fertility. Total sexual deprivation surrounded the worship of the Asherah and of Baal. It was a small task to tear those things down. Gideon did it. He was afraid he did it at night, but he did it. And the word was out. Because people got upset. Who did this? Gideon did it. The townspeople got upset with him. He'd taken a stand, but the other groups that got upset with him were the Midianites and the Amalekites. They destroyed our gods and our goddess. And so they assembled. They amassed their armies. We see that in verse 33. And then it says, the Spirit of God comes on Gideon and he calls forth an army. He's taken his stand. The word is up. Gideon is standing for the Lord. 32,000 people show up to follow. I think there's probably at least one person here this morning, maybe even more, and you have people waiting on you to stand up in the Lord. They're waiting for you to surrender to God. And when you do, they're going to rejoice. They're going to rise up. They're going to follow. So here's Gideon now. He sees this huge army of the Amalekites and Midianites, and he's still not sure. He's still not quite, let's go get them. He's afraid. So he says, okay, God, if you're really going to do it, if you're really going to lead us to victory, let me just put this little sheepskin out on the ground tonight, and if it's all soaking wet in the morning when I wake up and it's dry all around on the ground, I'll know it's you. So he puts the sheepskin, we know the story, right? He puts the sheepskin out, in the morning he rinses it out, and it's wet and the ground is dry. And then he says, this is great, he says the next day, do not let your anger burn against me, God. But can I test you one more time? Just to be sure? I want to be sure. Are you really, really sure? And so he does the opposite. He says, okay, I'm going to put the fleece out again, and if the fleece is dry and the ground is wet, I'm going to know. And he does it. All of his tests have been fulfilled. But then God says to him, okay, you know it's me now, right? You know it's me. You see these 32,000 you have there? That's too many. If you guys go to war and you win, you're going to think it's by your own power. So let's whittle this down a little bit. So the first thing that Gideon does, he says to the 32,000 soldiers, fighting-aged men, if you're afraid, or if you'd rather go home, if you got stuff waiting at home, like maybe your wife's waiting for you at home, if you don't want to do this, it's okay, go home. 22,000 go home. So he's left with 10,000. And then God says to him, that's still too many. We're going to get this down a little bit farther. So he gives them this drinking out of the pond test, which is kind of crazy. But the ones that got on their hands and knees and stuck their face in the water like an animal, send them home. The ones that dipped their hand in the water and bring it to their mouth, keep them. Well, 300 did that, 9,700 went home. Now he's got 300. 300 guys. And he is shaking. So the Lord says to him, go down to their camp at night and just listen to what they're saying. He goes down there and he hears a dream being interpreted that Gideon's going to come like a crushing stone. And so now he's ready. He has tested God. He's sure it's God. And even though there's only 300 going with him, he goes. And what does he find out after he surrenders? Well, he found out that God was with him. And he found out he was a valiant warrior. And what was the result? The armies of God, the enemies of God, were routed, and Israel experienced Gideon's peaceful reign for 40 years. So now back to my personal experience. I put my fleece out, so to speak. I wanted to test God. Is this really you, God? I can't believe this is really you. I hope it's not. No, I believe Gideon was more honorable than me with his fleece. Because I believe that we were both wanting to make sure it was God or not God, but I believe Gideon was wanting it to be God. I wanted to be sure, but the truth is I was hoping I'd find out it wasn't God. I didn't want to go to school. God wanted to do what God was, or Gideon wanted to do what God was asking, I didn't. I was offering more resistance than I was seeking validation. Looking for an excuse more than confirmation. So I put up my 4 tests. Okay, God, if this is really you, first of all, you're going to have to find us, my wife, my son, and I, a place to live for free. Because we're not going to put her in daycare, and we need a place to live for free. And I thought, that'll never happen. Boom, we got a place to live for free, plus a stipend. Okay. Next, I said, if you really want me to go to school, I'm going to have to get accepted. That was no guarantee, because believe me, even though I'd already been to college for 3 years, and I had a fee statement, and I paid tuition, and I had a schedule and all that, no one would accuse me of being a college student. Believe me. The grades on my report card had hard consonant sounds. I got accepted. So I come up with another one. Okay, God, if this is really you, and you really want me to go to school, you're going to have to give me a scholarship, a free ride, because I'm not paying for it. And you notice my attitude is so surrendering in nature? I'm not paying for that. I'm not giving them my money. Well, somebody, and I never figured out who, and if I met him, I don't know if I thank him or not, but anyway, somebody had endowed the University of Minnesota with a scholarship that if you were married and had a child and you were coming back to school and you were going to major in education, get this huge scholarship. Man, I am running out. But I got one more up my sleeve. This is my ace that I was holding. Okay, God, if this is really you, I'll take one class. I'll take a trial run. If I like it, and if I succeed in it, I'll do it. So I went through the catalog to find the worst sounding class I could imagine. I found it. Anthropological linguistics. Oh yeah, right up my alley. And then the first night of class, oh, this is so good. The guy walks in, the professor, oh my God, he's got the tweed jacket, the leather patches, the wire rim glasses, the frizzed out hair. I mean, my prejudices of that stereotype were in full blown, they were just, oh yeah, I'll hate this guy. And I didn't even know what anthropological linguistics meant. Well, he was amazing. A fantastic teacher. The class was absolutely fascinating. And I had run out of cards up my sleeve. I had to surrender. This is what I learned. First thing I learned is that I could learn. I didn't think I could. He wanted me to face and overcome fears that I wouldn't admit I had. I was really afraid of the classroom. I was afraid to go there because I had convinced myself that failure was the guaranteed outcome. I wouldn't admit that I was afraid. If someone was to ask me, oh, you're just afraid. No way. He wanted to show me that he could be trusted. Trusted to provide, trusted to open doors, trusted to be my protector, trusted to bring me to places where I could be fruitful. And I learned that he wanted to change the arc of my life. You know, in Matthew 16 and 25, it says, he who seeks to save his life will lose it, but he who loses his life for my sake shall find it. He was wanting me to give up a life that I was hanging on to bring me to a totally different life on a totally different path that wasn't even in my imagination. And I learned that he was the captain, not me. Now, I have to confess, it wasn't quite the end of my surrender. I went to school, I started teaching. My first year was good. My second year was not so good. That school kind of collapsed. It was a private school, and it was a bad year. My third year was even more horrible. I wanted out. And since it was a one-year-only contract, I wasn't going to go back to that school either, and I basically didn't know where to turn. And I thought, all right, give me the hammer. So that summer, I started working with a great Christian friend back in the construction world, and interest rates had come back down. Some of you remember Jimmy Carter, 19% interest rates. Well, they're back down to somewhat sanity at this point. And we're having a good time. We're working together. We're talking about how to expand this business, and we've got more business than we can take. We're turning people down. So my prayers went something like this. Okay, God, I went to school. I became a teacher. I did what you asked. But I can't do this anymore. It's killing me. I hate it. I can provide for my family better if I go into business with my friend. Can't you see how good we're doing? However, only by the grace of God, I was also able to pray, if you want me to stay in the classroom, you're going to have to make a way. My brother-in-law said to me, there's an opening in the Anoka-Hennepin district, you should apply. Well, he also said there's only 400 applicants. So I thought, well, okay, what the heck? So I sent for an application, and the application came, and this was back in the days when applications were paper, not online. And these people sent me an application on a vanilla colored paper. Well, that's terrible, because if you make a mistake typing, you got to use whiteout. And white against tan didn't seem like such a great idea. So in my brilliance, I filled it out in pencil, which my wife thought was really, really bad. Sent it in. I thought, well, there's no way they're ever going to get a hold of me. And my wife and I went on vacation for a little while. We come back, and I got a phone call that they want to interview me at this school. I'm thinking, there is no way. So I go, and I show up at the school. I got the right date, I got the right time. I walk in, and no one's there. It's dark. You know, every other light is on in the hallway. There's no lights on in the office. I double check my watch. I double check. I know I'm right. And no one's there, and I start to think to myself, well, I'll give them 5 minutes. 5 minutes go by, and I'm starting to think, all right, this is a sign. I can go back to being a builder. I can go back to doing what I really, really like. This is good. And I'm just about ready, and 5 minutes are up. And of course, I have always been a person of extreme patience. I said, well, I'll give them 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes go by, and they're still not back yet. No one's there, and I thought, well, this is just crazy. And I get ready to leave, and all of a sudden, this custodian comes walking down the hall. Wait. He said, are you Jeff? I go, yeah. He said, oh, you're the new teacher, right? And I go, oh, I haven't been interviewed yet. And his name is Bill. He's got Bill written here on the side of his shirt, you know, and he's got the Anoka-Hennepin custodian's uniform on, and he says, no, don't go. They're all out to lunch. They'll be back in a few minutes. The principal knows you're going to be here. Just wait. Don't go. I said, okay. And he said, you should wait for him in his office. No, I'm not waiting for him in his office. That's crazy. He said, well, at least stick your head in and have a look. I said, oh, all right. I'm starting to think this guy is woo-hoo. Anyway, we walk in the office, and behind the principal's desk is a big, huge piece of artwork. It's kind of like a relief bust of Christ with John 3:16 written underneath it. I'm thinking, whoa, okay, public school, principal, believer, that's pretty good. And Bill kind of twinkles his eye at me, and we walk back out in the hallway, and he says, you know the job is yours, right? I go, no, I don't. He goes, oh yeah, the principal, you know, he and I talk all the time, and he told me that he's hiring you. He loved your letters of recommendation. He's going to hire you, and the only reason you wouldn't get the job is if you turn it down. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, principals talk to their custodians all the time about hiring practices. That makes so much sense to me. I didn't say anything to him, but I'm like, So the principal comes. He doesn't even interview me, really. He goes, hey, here's where your classroom's going to be. And then he takes me behind this little cubby, and he says, here's where the good coffee is. And he says, hey, I noticed that you filled out your application in pencil. And I thought, oh, here it comes. He said, you know, NASA spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to figure out how to get a pen to write in weightless space. The Russians used a pencil. He said, I like pencils. Okay, pencil, cool pencil. And so he said, the job is yours. And I said, can I talk to my wife first? Like she's going to say no. And I'll let you know tomorrow. He said, sure, you let me know tomorrow. So as I'm walking out to the car, Bill's out there working on a faucet outside the building. And he waves, and I said, hey, nice to meet you, bye. So this was in June. School doesn't start till August. So August comes around, I go start the job, and it's the first week. It's the week before the students come, workshop week, and I'm working, and I'm kind of interested to talk to Bill. So I go down to the custodian's office to see if I can find him, and he's not there. I thought, well, maybe he's on vacation. I don't think anything more about it, and then the school year starts, and he's not there again, and so I walk in the principal's office, and I said, where's Bill? And the principal says, Bill who? I said, Bill the custodian, the guy I met the day I came for the interview. And I described him physically and everything, and told him about our conversation. I said, you know, Bill, he told me that you and him talk all the time about things at work and that you were going to hire me. Well, my principal looked at me with a bit of shock on his face. And he said, we've never had anybody here named Bill, ever. And the only person I've ever talked to about hiring you was the Lord in prayer. And so, yeah. Wow. Him and I were looking at each other, and it was a moment. Wow. I was pretty sure now. Taking that job was the start of an incredible 30-plus year career working with young people, many who still stay in contact with me. I learned that surrender was the pathway to being used for the things that God made me for, fulfilling His purposes for my life. I learned what my true gifts were. He opened doors that I didn't even know were out there and needed to be opened. He enlarged my sphere of influence, and He brought wonderful tomorrow people into my life. Even though a lot of us here have gray hair, there's still tomorrow people in your life. And the Lord's going to bless you through them and bless them through you. So when the tomorrow people come your way, don't send them away. It wasn't all sweet and rosy. I had to sidestep minefields with other personal attacks, go through deep conflicts with administrators, ignore slander, and pinch pennies. I'd worked 2 jobs for many years. But I knew I was where I was supposed to be. I'll just say one more thing about this. It's my story. I'm not proud of how I did things back then. And I'm not advocating for anyone to put out a fleece as a way of determining whether or not God's leading you. I believe Gideon's story may be more descriptive than prescriptive, if you know what I mean by that. But I didn't. And I tell you, the surrender continues. You know, Paul tells us it's a daily thing, right? It's a daily thing. Because if I had my way, if I got to determine what I would be doing with my life, I'd be a hermit. I'd be living in the boonies somewhere with tools on my hand, putzing away at building something and never having to talk to anybody ever. That's just my natural way I would be. Drives my wife crazy. She said, we should have some people over. And I go, I am an introvert by nature, but I know the Lord doesn't want me to be. And I write, and that's solitary as well. And so, you know, I could be a hermit. I could, you know, build things all day, write at night, and I'd be happy as a clam, probably. But I would not be where the Lord wants me to be. My way is not the best way. And that brings us to Jesus. None of us here have any doubts that Jesus came to do the will of the Father. After all, the ancient prophecy from Psalm 40 tells us, in the scroll of the book it is written of me, I delight to do your will, O my God. In the Gospels, he told his followers and skeptics alike, I do what I see my Father doing. And of course, Paul points out in Philippians that he became obedient to the point of death. And when we look at moments of surrender in his life here on earth, what we see is his surrender was an ongoing obedience to the will of his Father. The first moment we find is in Luke 6 in the choosing of the 12. It says in Luke 6 that he went off to a mountain to pray, and he spent the whole night in prayer, and then when he came down, he chose the 12. You know, I've often wondered, why did it take a whole night of prayer to figure out the 12? We know from earlier in the Gospels, he'd already picked out 7. He's only got 5 more to go. And I'm thinking that he probably hears his Father's voice pretty well, could have just been boom, 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 it's over, not all night. I believe that choosing 11 of the 12 is relatively easy. I'm thinking that maybe handpicking the person who's going to steal from the money box, betray you, lead your executioners to a place where they can arrest you in the secret hours of the night, maybe that was not as easy. But he picked Judas to be one of the 12. And the next moment of surrender I'd like us to think about in Jesus' life is on the Mount of Transfiguration. It's in Luke 9 and 31, the Mount of Transfiguration. It says that he was talking with Moses and Elijah, and they were discussing his departure, which he was about to accomplish in Jerusalem. That was their topic of conversation. And after he came down, he met with his disciples, and then comes the most pivotal verse in all of Luke, Luke 9 and 51. This verse, Luke 9:51, harkens all the way back to Isaiah 50, where 700 plus years before Christ, Isaiah prophesies concerning the ultimate servant. And what does it say about that servant? It says that he set his face like flint to obey. And what does it say in Luke 9 and 51? He set his face to go to Jerusalem. No more wandering about the countryside. No more small town gatherings and healings. No more weddings with good wine. No more boat rides. No more walking on the water. No more giant picnics on the hillsides. The destiny his father set for him was in Jerusalem, and he knew what awaited. He'd been discussing his departure with Elijah and Moses, but he was on his way. And finally, we come to the famous scene of surrender in the Garden of Gethsemane. In our verse for today, which is Matthew 26 and 44, it says that, and we know the scene, we know what's happening. He brought 3 of his disciples away from the rest of them, and he says, watch and pray, which they were great at. And he left them and went to be by himself. And in 26 and 44, it says, he left them again, and he went away and prayed a 3rd time, saying the same thing once more. We know the scene, we know the prayer. He was in such anguish, an angel had to come and strengthen him. Luke tells us his sweat became like drops of blood, and his prayer, my Father, all things are possible for you. Remove this cup from me. I don't want to do this. The second, the second half of his prayer, the prayer of surrender, the prayer of victory. Yet not my will, but yours be done. Please notice, my friends, he did not get there the first time. He did not get there the second time. It was 3 sessions of wrestling and prayer to reach that final surrender. And it's his surrender was what fulfilled his walk of obedience, and he completed what the Father had him to do, and he accomplished through his surrender probably the greatest event in human history. The book of Hebrews tells us that although he was a son, he learned obedience from what he suffered. I want us to leave today with this thought. If we find ourselves resisting something the Father is asking us to do, the way to the path of life is through surrender. And if we can't get there the first time, and if we can't get there the second time, it's okay. Keep praying to have an example to follow. And on the other side of surrender, we will find ourselves in a place where God can use us and bless us in ways that our self-guided plans could never envision. You cannot carve a life out for yourself that compares to the life God will lead you into. Trust Him. Father, I thank you that you've called us to yourself. Grant us the awareness to sense your urging. Grant us the grace to surrender to your will. And grant us the wisdom to trust your leading. We love you and we thank you for the Lord Jesus. Amen.
Amen. You may be seated.